Welcome back to Off the Wall, everyone. My name is Bogz. Today I'm going to be reviewing episode 7 of Ahsoka. This one's called Dreams of Madness. I say let's get straight to it. So, admittedly, I am a little split on this one. Should we be worried after this episode going into the finale next week? Initial reaction, this was a bit of a mid-episode and a little bit of a step down from episode 6. Because episode 6 was really well done and cool and a lot happening, my expectations were consequently super high, super intrigued in the story being told. The plot moved forward so much, so maybe my expectations were a little bit high, but it's because what came in episodes, particularly 4, 5, and 6, were really good. I have watched it again on kind of second watch and stuff. I did enjoy it more, but I still have a few issues with this episode. And I still feel like it has been a couple of steps back in terms of the excitement that they've built on over the last few and the trajectory that we're on in episodes 4, 5, and 6. And I think it's because episode 7 isn't really emotional in any way. It isn't gripping or exciting or thrilling or anything kind of, no big reveals, if you will. It doesn't leave us wanting to know more, dying to know what is going to happen in the finale. I want to know what immediately happens next. There's no cliffhanger at the end of the episode, no big kind of, as I said, reveal, nothing shocking, nothing surprising. And that's why it's a bit of a mid episode for me. It's like the episode ends with Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra just hugging it out, them catching up. And yeah, it's a sweet moment, but it isn't anything. It's not much to watch TV, and particularly Thrawn and how it's going to go down with him and how it left off and his plan and everything, which I'll come to in a second. Again, it was all a little bit flat, but there definitely was some things I enjoyed. At the beginning, Ahsoka with the hologram, interesting, kind of deep meaning with obviously Anakin Skywalker's hologram, the kind of secret recordings that she has, that even Hu Yang hadn't seen them. We know throughout Ahsoka's history that she's burden and she carries that negative portrayal of Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader being her master, and she is in his shadow. But that hologram changing sequence was closure for us, for the audience, an acknowledgement to say that she's accepted who he is and he was a good master as Anakin Skywalker for her. And we got to see a bit of the New Republic, how they're responding to Hera and the events of the other rebels. We got some nice references for Mandalorian season 3, and I did like the C-3PO cameo. It was a little heavy-handed, like how they had a character to come in to save Hera almost and give her credit. Like what she's saying isn't enough, like being a general and having Ahsoka involved and Jedi and people dying isn't enough. C-3PO comes in. I was a bit shocked to see him. Of course, the scene would have been so much better if Leia would have been there. Don't know how they would have done that exactly, but it just seemed a little too convenient. It would have just meant so much more if Leia was there. Obviously, Leia does appear in Star Wars Rebels, in the animated version, of course, but would have meant so much more if Leia herself would have been there. The space battle was fantastic as well. The scenes with the Purgle, flying through the bones, obviously them escaping with the bombs and being filled with mines. It was really good, visually stunning, of course, and it had a prequels feel as well. And shout out to the music in this episode. I did get all the kind of prequel and original trilogy themes as well, particularly with C-3PO and things like that. I did get the small references there, and the music in this sequence really was prequel-esque as well. And we got to see Ahsoka with her piloting skills, because she did learn directly under Anakin Skywalker, obviously one of the greatest starfighter pilots in the galaxy, in a Jedi fighter, and doing a thing. And she seems like she's more like her regular self, plucky, joking a lot. It has been a major complaint that she isn't her plucky and joyful self in the kind of first 3 episodes of the season, but she seems like she's back to her normal self. And seeing the bones and things like that as a part of the aesthetic, as things that they have to, obstacles that they're hiding behind, and seeing them getting blown up and stuff is a little creepy. I don't know how anybody else felt, but yes, that being the rings around the planet still is a little eerie to me. But I do think the personality and the effectiveness and kind of skillfulness of Thrawn is a bit of an issue as well. I just wanted to see more of him being kind of a master planner, and for example, him being shocked that Ahsoka was Anakin Skywalker's apprentice. I wanted to see more of that. We do know from reading previous Thrawn material that he does know Anakin Skywalker. He did go on a couple of missions with him, so I just wanted to see his acknowledgement with Ahsoka a little bit more. I wanted to get more dialogue there, and there was some exposition for us, the audience, to get to know Thrawn's kind of prowess and way of being, master strategist, but it's seemingly and not a very good plan that Thrawn came up with. I was really underwhelmed. Like, oh, let's just keep them busy whilst we get the cargo ready. Yeah, even though we have to sacrifice troops and we've got limited force and things like that, it was really underwhelming and not that smart. Previous material from books, from Rebels, Thrawn's an expert strategist, always steps ahead. But instead, Thrawn came up with this really placid plan, kind of spelled out to us that he's steps ahead of Ahsoka, but the steps are not that in depth, and consequently, it wasn't a very good use of Thrawn. I felt it wasn't that interesting of a plot because his reveal of the strategy was always quite surprising and dramatic, and the music would swell, kind of to reveal his plan because that is his superpower in effect in against Force users. But it just felt really underwhelming. Like, oh, I'm just getting the cargo ready. So, yeah, I thought they could have done better with that. Come up with a better plan for Thrawn. I have to say the actor playing Ezra is doing a fantastic job. I'm really intrigued with his performance, his delivery, his character, his personality, joking a lot. But with Sabine, it is a little frustrating because there is no sense of urgency between them. Sabine isn't revealing the plan to him. She isn't explaining that Thrawn can get off the planet. She isn't explaining how, coming up with any ideas how they can get back. She didn't explain what's going on with Ahsoka, all these little hints and stuff, and it's complicated. And yeah, it's just building up to a little bit frustrating between them two because the last episode we left on so many cliffhangers. I needed more detail between them two and a bit more dialogue. Obviously, we got a force connection moment like in Empire between Luke and Leia. We got one here between Ahsoka and Sabine. It did feel a little forced, to be honest, but it was handled well on Sabine's part because she didn't understand what was going on. She's not force sensitive, but she felt she isn't using the force, but there was a comfort, a really warm home feeling that she got. So I did appreciate the way that they handled that. But like I said, it did feel forced just for Ahsoka to identify where Sabine is on the planet. But like I said, they handled it okay. Definitely one of the surprising things in this episode was the way that Balin, or his decision to walk away from Thrawn's mission and to walk away from Shin. And this happens in the midst of other things, with Thrawn discussing his plan, Ahsoka, obviously Ahsoka in a starship, Ezra and Sabine, escaping the bandits and stuff like that. And he does say his goodbyes to her. He does give her kind of one last lesson, and his path leads to somewhere else. And we still don't know what is this something else. It's been hinted at since episode 1. He looks off into the sky and wonders about this other greater power, his greater purpose. He's being called on this planet, but it's too many references, and we've got one episode left, and we still have no idea what he's being referring to. Will it be the sun? Will it be a Mortis arc? That's what seemingly it could potentially be, but really we've got no idea. Did get kind of a long action sequence with Ezra and Sabine as they're being chased down by, I think they're called the Noti, which is the bandits on the planet. We got a super controversial moment where Ezra is given his lightsaber by Sabine. Here you go, do your thing. She did offer it him several times and he declined it. And I was super confused. I was almost shouting at my screen for him to grab the lightsaber. Throughout Rebels, he never, had an episode, I don't think, but, that he was involved in without his lightsaber. He was somewhat proficient with it. He was obviously learning a lot, but it is an integral part of his character. Explains that the force is my ally, I don't need it. And we do see him fighting almost like kind of karate monk-esque without it. Him doing a lot of force pushes and avoiding people, blocking and fighting. And then but later on he does pick up a blaster and starts firing it. He does decline the blaster as well as the lightsaber. But this is a worrying thing in the Disney Star Wars era where we're bringing these characters back and they're not, and they're being literally being handed offering the lightsaber. I was almost waiting for Ezra to throw the lightsaber over his shoulder. I would have switched it off there and then if that would have happened. But this is a little frustrating. Why, I'm going to call Ezra a legacy character because, Rebels did, I believe it started before the Disney era. Given this lightsaber, as Obi-Wan says, this is your life. This lightsaber is your life. Treasure it, and is an integral part of the Jedi. It's their ancient weapon and it just being dismissed. I don't like this at all. And it's really annoying, actually. As well, in terms of Ezra's fight scenes and the way he fights, yes, we do know he isn't the strongest or greatest force user in the galaxy or anything like that. But if you're refusing your lightsaber, you need to be so badass. And we need to understand why you did refuse your lightsaber. And he is often a little clumsy, not the best trained. He's taking a lot of hits and things like that, which is okay. But in terms of refusing your lightsaber, you need to be so badass, and he's just not. So that was also a little underwhelming, to be honest. And I have to say, Sabine's choreography with the blaster, with the lightsaber, her just fighting kind of the bandits and stuff, it is really clunky. And they really need to work on this because I've seen several scenes now from her character and I'm really unimpressed and underwhelmed. Unfortunately, with the actors or actress playing Sabine in particular, it's a real letdown. Ahsoka then jumps from a ship and lands at Balin, who is kind of looking off into the sky. Although I did like this choreography between Balin and Ahsoka a lot better, but it still wasn't the best I've seen in this series. But Balin is himself a very interesting character and a fighter as well. As a swordsman, he seems to be really proficient, and he even says to Ahsoka, straight up, "You can't beat me." Even though Ahsoka's had all this training, she's beaten Maul in Clone Wars, and all these other characters, went hand to hand with Vader, obviously in Star Wars Rebels and in the kind of War Between Worlds sequence. But Balin seems to have her in his pocket. Then we do get a sequence seeing Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka team up against Night Troopers and Shin as well. But then we see Thrawn order them to retreat. The Night Troopers are like running past them and they're just kind of letting them go. Some of them get taken out and stuff, but really underwhelming in terms of the action. I wanted to see more, these rebel characters team up as they did previously. We hear Thrawn's plan was just almost to waste time to get ready to leave. So again, did not like this plan at all, and it wasn't good enough for Thrawn's caliber. And then we see kind of Shin left on her own, and she kind of rejects Ahsoka's kind of hand. She explains to her, I can help you, just jumps on the wolf thing and kind of runs away. And the episode ends with Sabine, Ezra, and Ahsoka just hugging it out and having a kind of a nice moment in the field. Yeah, it was nice to see them back together, but there's no urgency. The galaxy is at stake here. Thrawn has an army, he has Night Sisters trying to leave the planet, and they're just kind of having a casual catch up. So overall, this episode really felt filler. If there was a few more episodes left, if this was a mid-season episode, I would be totally fine with it. But because the last few episodes have been really good and there's only one episode left, there's so much left on the table, and I'm therefore judging it differently. Again, really surprised to show how they're depicting Thrawn here, and we're missing some important parts to his character and the explanations in terms of him being an expert strategist and him being a grand admiral. We're not really seeing that as we should. So I'm going to be watching obviously the finale. I'm wondering how they're going to tie all this together and setting up for the future. And will there be any resolution to season one? Because there is so many questions left on the table, not including all the War Between Worlds stuff, the Hera situation, what's going on. Thrawn going to get back to the galaxy? How are the others going to get back? What's the resolution with Anakin? Will they discuss with Ezra? What's the situation? Will the World Between Worlds? And what's Balin? What's going on with Balin and Shin? There's so many things left on the table. And after this episode being anticlimactic, I have therefore lowered my expectations going into the finale. But I have to say that I do like the show overall. There's some really good episodes. There's definitely some weaker episodes. This was a bit of a middle to weaker episode. And Filoni, from the good episodes that I've got, Filoni is that guy to take us forward into the future. But there are some important things missing in this show in general, but it is hitting some heights, but not as much as I would like. As I said, I do like some parts, don't like some, but I'm going to call the parts that I don't like out respectively. So a lot to tie up in the final episode. So generally speaking, the finales for Disney Plus are really rough. So hopefully it's not the case for this one, because overall I have somewhat enjoyed this series, but there's so much to tie up and into the future. Let's see. Please tell me, guys, what do you think of this episode? How are you enjoying this season so far? Please like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next week for the finale, episode 8 of Ahsoka. We'll catch you guys next week.